Good afternoon, Ambassador Ron Adam.
Good afternoon.
Nice to meet you again. So, straight to the questions. Straight to the questions. How many confrontations and ceasefires can Israel and Palestine handle and cope with?
I don't know how many. We are in this conflict 120 years, you know. It was the first one was in late 80s in the 19th century. Then there were a few in the 20s of the 20th century, in the 20s and in the 30s, under the British mandate. There were riots, like we saw this week, by the way, in the cities like Jaffa and Lida and other cities, Jerusalem, of course. So it has been there for 120 years, more, even 140 years. And so we need a lot of patience. Let's say if we mention 1947, after so long of British mandate and the Turks, they were there. So 1947 was a crucial year where the UN had discussed the British mandate, the mandate of the Brits. They handed it to the UN in 1940s. They couldn't bear it anymore. So they wanted the UN to decide what to do. This is the origin of what is called question of Palestine. It is the agenda item in the UN. It's called question of Palestine. It was the British who put the name. What should we do with Palestine? This is the question of Palestine. Since then, by the way, the UN holds this agenda item until today under many hats and headlines. So anyway, 1947, they discussed, since the late 1946, they discussed this issue. They sent people to the region. They searched what should we do, what can be done. They by the way, they did question. They had questioned many Jews who were there, and the head of our institutions already, because we had institutions since we bothered to build institutions for our state since 1897, so 50 years. The Arabs didn't want to be interviewed. They boycotted this committee who came to Palestine. It was called UNSCOP. So the Jews said, yes, we will have a state if you give us, and let's discuss the borders, blah, blah, blah. At the end, they proposed the partition plan. Partition plan, it was proposed and voted upon on 29 November 1947. That is when the UN proposed a Jewish state and an Arab state. So this is the beginning of everything, or the middle, let's say, from ancient history until then, and from then until 1978, when there was the first sign of the Arabs, they agreed that we will have a Jewish state. So from 1948 until 1978, there were wars. The Arabs didn't like the idea of having a Jewish state, although we were there 2,000 years before, much before the Muslims came to the world, Islam. So we were happy. My mother went to dance. She was 12 years old in the streets of Tel Aviv, that finally we have a state, and this is the acknowledgement of the United Nations, a Jewish state and Arab state. But the Arabs didn't want the state, they didn't want us, they didn't want the partition plan, they voted against, but the UN voted in favor at the end. It was a majority of 2/3. Since then there were wars. 1947 and 8, there were 2 wars, one before the British left and one after the British left. More organized, less organized, we're not going to get into details. 1956, 1967, 1973. In 1978, the Egyptians started to say, okay, let's have them around and let's sign a peace treaty, and Sadat was in Israel, and etc. And the rest is history. So 30 years we have peace or more with Egypt. Then the Jordanians signed the peace treaty in 94, 93 we had the Oslo agreements, and we were Palestinians, etc. So it's a long time that we are there. Now, Hamas is another story, because Hamas took over from Gaza, which was completely vacated from Jews, from us. We were there until 2004. We kept the place. Although no one liked the place, the Egyptians didn't want it. Many years they didn't want it. But so we were there, we settled Jews there, there were settlements there. But when finally 2004, it was the Prime Minister Ariel Sharon who decided to withdraw from Gaza, unilaterally, no agreement with anyone, just withdraw. And we hoped that the Palestinians will take over from Abu Mazen, it was already after Arafat, and we will be able to build the new Hong Kong of the Middle East there. Because they had all the possibilities to do it. However, they decided, first of all, there were elections, which we were forced to agree upon. It was the Americans who fought us, because they know what democracy is, and elections need to be. And then in the elections, the Hamas took and also did a coup d'etat practically, killed many Palestinians, killed the Palestinian Authority. The moderates took over by force and by elections, both. There were chaos there. And then started to build a war economy instead of peace economy, to build tunnels and rockets instead of civilian institutions and economy. And since then, under Iran, instruction of Iran, because it's a long arm of Iran, from time to time, they use their weapons that they build, God knows, they get the money from, and they launch rockets with no reason, because we are not there, there is no conflict on land, they can build. And so I come back to a question, why the Holocaust happened, why the genocide happened. There is no reason. It's just maybe domination of Iran in this case, or just hatred towards Jews, or jealousy, or God knows what. So we will have to protect ourselves also in the future. It's no other way.
Interesting. To something you made mention of, elections were held in 2006 in Palestine, and Hamas won the elections.
In Gaza.
In Gaza.
Yes.
By any means, any way you look at it, Hamas won the elections. Now, was it a big error that Israel and the West and Western states did not recognize the victory?
Did not recognize
the victory. Was it a big error that Israel and the Western states did not recognize the victory of Hamas in Gaza back then?
I don't know. It's something from the past I cannot relate to. I don't know. It's what would happen if we recognize? Would it be different? I don't think so. So to answer it, I don't think it was a mistake.
Interesting. If an election were held now, and if an election were held now without any postponements from the
West Bank,
from the Palestinian government,
yes,
and would Israel be comfortable with whoever wins the election in Gaza?
No. The elections should have been in West Bank.
West Bank, okay.
Yes,
okay.
in West Bank, and that is one of the reasons for this cycle of events. Because the West Bank, it was if I understand correctly, the president of the Palestinian Authority postponed the elections. He didn't want to have it because he realized who is going to win. And so on one hand, most of the Palestinians, I think also in Gaza, but for sure in West Bank, they want to live in peace. They want to live in prosperity. They look for the daily life, etc., etc. And it's normal. And the extremists, they live, probably there are also a lot of corruption there. They live from building warfare and etc. They live from it. They do money like here it was before for 94. How much money the leaders did from the corruption in building warfare. So probably this is another reason, by the way. So Most of them want peace. Most of them want to live in peace, and however, they do elect Hamas. Probably Hamas would be elected now in West Bank. Why? Well, probably because they want to protest against corruption that is there anyway, also under Abu Mazen. So they vote against what they have. It is normal in a way, you protest. But when they think about what will happen, they don't. Because what would happen is that Hamas take over, he will build another terror state in West Bank, which will be disastrous for the Palestinians and for Israel. So of course it would be very bad, and that is why we also have difficulties in living one-sidedly living the West Bank and building a two-state, because we do speak about two-state solution. However, now if you step out of the West Bank unilaterally, or at least part of it, which was on the table in the past many times, but they didn't want it. Even with Olmert, it was like 95% of the area. We would step out. We would just leave with agreement. But the Palestinians didn't want it, unfortunately, because they wanted 100%. It's very, very pity. Very, very sad. So anyway, if we had a Hamas state in West Bank, it would be disastrous. We cannot even now think about two-state solution because we have a fear that they will be taking over West Bank, and we will have rockets 5 minutes from Ben Gurion Airport, and then 20 minutes from Tel Aviv. I mean minutes in driving, not minutes of a rocket. It's insane. It's insane, and it will be only bad for both sides. So it was him, Abu Mazen, who decided to postpone the elections, which probably is a good move. But you see what happened.
Interesting. This brings me to the next question, which I alluded to: the two-state solution. The two-state solution. So the two-state solution involves Jerusalem being the capital, right, of both states. Now, from what you've said, this is no longer applicable. From what you said, is no longer applicable.
No, this is not what I said. I said that now, currently, when there is the danger of Hamas taking over, it's not possible. Yes. But God knows what the future will bring. We hope after 140 years, something would change. But there must be a decision of the Arabs to accept us. And also, if, for example, Iran's regime will change, it might be a big change in the region. For example, also in geopolitics, also in Lebanon. Hezbollah, we don't have any argument on the border. There is a border which is accepted by Lebanon and Israel since 2002, I think, from the UN. It's called the Blue Line. It's acceptable, but still, Hezbollah, from time to time, launch rockets to Israel. Why? There's no reason. We have no discussion about borders or land. Because Iran is showing its strength in the region, its domination. And they activate their agents in Lebanon and in Gaza. And then when they will change the regime, again, most of the Iranians, they are good people. We have nothing against the Iranian people. We were very good friends in the past. So if something changes, I believe that, you never know.
Interesting. To an incident that happened during the 11-day confrontation war skirmish, the Israel's defense forces bombed the building housing Al Jazeera and AP, Associated Press offices in
among others.
among others,
Yes.
definitely among others. The official reason was
Yes.
that the building was
Yes.
also housing an installation by Hamas.
Yes,
Okay.
the head of the intelligence arm of Hamas operated of all buildings in Gaza from this building,
From this
where
building.
Al Jazeera is
Okay.
located.
Now,
And it is, of course, on purpose. Of course, because they are protected there, they feel. And of course, maybe Al Jazeera had good partnership with the agents of intelligence of Hamas. Maybe they work together. God knows. You know,
Maybe.
they get information. They get information. Yeah, why not?
Okay, so now there's people.
But did you see the photo? Oh, you don't need it because I'm looking for it. But
that's
never
what I'm
mind.
getting to.
Yes,
That's what I'm getting to. I saw the photo. It's my job. to
you
dig
did. Of course,
information.
you are very good
it's my job.
writer.
I did it. I got the information. I did.
Yes,
But people who are not exposed, people who don't really know what is going on.
yes.
Some would say, but where's the evidence? People don't really know what is going on. They say,
Evidence was
but-
probably moved out or
but where's
taken.
but people who don't really know what's going on will say, but where's the evidence?
Yes,
Now, as a former journalist,
yes,
as a former journalist,
Yes.
as you are
yes.
in the 60s yourself, doesn't this act, the bombing of the building that also housed media houses,
Yes.
doesn't it give license for other governments to indirectly target media houses anytime they feel like, in any guise or form?
I don't know about other governments. I don't care. We have the highest moral army in the world. We cannot allow launch of rockets from civilian places. They launched rockets from there. They also host the intelligence arm. People were giving instructions to terror activities from there, and we both phoned every person there in the building to leave the building.
Okay.
You know that.
Yes, I know.
Yes. Unlike the Palestinians, of course, who launch rockets indiscriminately. And so we did that, and we have to send a signal that you cannot hide in such buildings, even if it is whatever is there. And I don't know about other governments. I don't know. I don't know. I hope there will be no wars in the world at all. Not only in this place, but anywhere.
Okay.
So I don't expect anyone to get to situations where there is a launch of rockets on civilians, even one rocket, not to mention 4,300 and hundreds a day. There is no place in the world that can tolerate that. And can you imagine one rocket lands on Kigali? It's insane. It's the end of the world. They will look at it as if it's the end of the world.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Even one rocket we could not tolerate, but we do unfortunately tolerate every now and then rockets that are launching near the Gaza Strip. But now they launch on Jerusalem, they launch on Tel Aviv, they launch on other big cities, Beersheba. You have to protect yourself. It's a complete right of any country to do it and to stop it. And in order to stop it, we had to fire. And part of it is this building. There's no other way.
Interesting. I will come back to the rockets, and I'll come back to the rockets and a particular question. So from the creative, from the literal aspect of things, people would also wonder, why would Israel target a library, the biggest, I think it's called the Mansour bookshop in Gaza? Why would Israel target the
I have no
biggest
clue
library?
about it. I don't
No,
know.
you don't know about
No.
it. Okay. So I think that was done last week Tuesday. It was last week Tuesday. The biggest library in Gaza is the biggest publishing house, biggest bookshop, and it was also targeted. Anyway, but
Bookshop, Ikirezi. No, I mean I look for books. I don't think we were updated about that, and I'm not sure it's true. I'm telling you, I'm not sure it's true because I have no clue about it. So
okay. I did a bit of digging and
maybe it's just propaganda. Can be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
To the next question, during the 11-day confrontation between Israel and Hamas, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu showed a visiting EU leader.
Yes,
A visiting
showed.
EU leader.
What do you mean showed?
A drone shot down by the A drone shot down by the Israeli IDF. A drone.
Yes.
Yeah, a drone. Yeah, and the information was that the drone was alleged to have been manufactured in Iran. Yes, and the question now is, some days later, I think 2 days ago, a drone manufacturing plant in Iran was had an explosion. Was that
I cannot relate.
Was
to
that
it.
a coincidence?
I have no idea.
You have
I have no idea.
Okay. So,
But did you mention ministers from Europe?
no, there was an EU
Yes,
leader.
there
that
were
came
few ministers, foreign affairs, who came to Israel
and
to
the
support
PM, yes.
its right to self-defense.
Yes.
They came all the way from Europe to support Israel, including the foreign minister of Germany.
Yeah.
It was a very important move, and we were very happy about it.
So, politically, there's this Israeli author and historian. There's this Israeli author and historian called Yuval Noah Harari.
Yes, Yuval Noah Harari.
I hope I got the pronunciation
Yuval.
right. Yuval, yeah.
Yuval. Y, not J. Yuval. Yes.
Okay, interesting. So recently he made a statement.
Yes.
And I would quote part of it to you.
Yes.
And I want to get your feedback on it. What you think on it?
Yes,
So
maybe. I'm
recently
not sure. I can give you feedback.
Recently he said that it is probably not a coincidence that the current wave of violence broke out just as a government was about to rise up that leaned on cooperation between Jews and Arabs. There are factors on both sides that feeds on hate and will to do anything to prevent coexistence. We cannot let them win. It is essential to hurry up and form a government in cooperation with the Arab parties. This is the way to stop the cycle of hatred, save the fabric of our shared life, and make it clear to extremists on both sides that they will not be able to destroy our country. What's your take on his comments?
First of all, Yuval Noah Harari is a very intelligent writer.
Okay.
He wrote at least 3 books, which are the most popular in the world, describing the history and the future. And he did it in an amazing way. It's really proud and really a pride for Israel. And of course, I cannot relate to specifically about forming governments or not forming. I'm just an officer in the foreign ministry. So I cannot, it's a very political issue, internal issue. And of course, I can say that Arabs are 20% of the population. They deserve to be equal citizens, to get equal rights. If they do equal, also if they are equal part, and if they are contributing their part, if they pay taxes and everything, of course, then they deserve to be same as is the Jews. And most of the Arabs are equal. We have them in the parliament, they are represented. I think nowadays there are, if I'm not mistaken, well, less than before, unfortunately, because they separated themselves among themselves, so they are not as represented as they were before.
Formidable.
But they are represented, and they, as I said, they deserve same rights as anyone else. There are no second level, second tier of people. It should not be. I tell you 100%. And if someone can form a government with Arabs, then fine. But I cannot really tell you if I'm against it or in favor of this. I am in favor of Noah Harari, Yuval, for sure, because he's very intelligent and he made a big. He presented a new paradigm in writing. So, other than that, what can I say? There were 4 rounds of elections where the leader was chosen to form government by the president, failed to do it, and this is the 4th round. I really hope, for my own very personal, let's say, point of view, that there will be a government formed, because we need budget, and it's a stalemate where we don't have budget. When there is no government, it's very difficult to work as an ambassador without the government. So I'm very much in favor of someone succeeding to do it, and that's it.
Interesting. To the next question, earlier when we started this interview, you made mention of anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. So to the next question, is there a thin line between calling Israel's actions in Gaza an occupation, an apartheid, and being seen as anti-Semitic?
Of course, it is being seen. It is anti-Semitic because there is no apartheid, and people who are African, I don't know, some, of course, those who lived in South Africa, they know exactly what is apartheid, and this is not apartheid, of course. We are not part of Gaza. We don't occupy Gaza. We left Gaza completely. There is no single soldier there or any civilian. We have the borders. The borders most of the time is open because they want to work in Israel. They want to work in Israel, but then they say we occupy them. Gaza Strip is completely not occupied by Israel. And if they want to export terror to Israel, then we close the border. What can we do? But if they live in peace, the border will be open for trade and for movement of people and fortune, whatever. Also with Egypt. The Egyptians, they close the border from their side. We are closing when they talk war. So we close. If they talk peace, we will open, for sure. So there is no occupation, no apartheid. It's just propaganda. And unfortunately, we see anti-Semitism not only in this propaganda, but also in the world. Unfortunately, there are some Palestinians who are motivated by Hamas, financed by Hamas, and do acts of anti-Semitism, even in New York and elsewhere. And this has to be stopped.
Interesting. Some minutes ago, you made mention of the rockets and all rockets being fired into Israel and everything. So for those who don't know, what's the Iron Dome all about, and how effective has its deployment been over the years?
Iron Dome. I have a personal part in Iron Dome. My father was a scientist in the Israeli army industry. He died, unfortunately, many years ago, but he was one of the first people who invented Iron Dome in the team, the initial team, yes. And it is very bright because it was not called Iron Dome when he started, but he started to do things that's connected to it. And this is great. Now, Iron Dome is the protection against rockets from different ranges, from short range and middle range and long range. And what's interesting, maybe you don't know, probably you know everything, but maybe I'll just tell you one thing. Iron Dome, when they see the launch with 10 or 20 in the same time or less from same car that is launching, so every rocket has an address already since the launch. The address is being calculated by Iron Dome, and they know exactly where it will land. And so if it's going to be landing in among civilian area in the cities, then there is a rocket sent to intercept it. If the address is going to be just empty area, there is no rocket sent to it. Okay, and if, of course, again, also if it's going to, the address is within Gaza. 1/3 of the rockets fell within Gaza. They destroyed things there, probably, and this is, of course, insane. It's part of the insanity. But so Iron Dome really recognizes exactly where it's going to land. In order to save rockets, it doesn't launch against. And then the interception, of course, when it intercepts, you have pieces falling. So people are always requested to stay in the shelter 10 minutes after the sirens are on. Unfortunately, so many sirens were heard during these 11 days, people couldn't sleep for 11 days, practically in the area, even in Tel Aviv. But Iron Dome is the protection, of course, and it was a very good decision of the Minister of Defense and it's a co-finance with the US.
Oh, really?
It's a project which is joint.
Joint, okay.
Yes.
To a humanitarian question, would Israel also aid in the rebuilding of Gaza?
Aiding?
Aid in
No,
the
I don't
rebuilding.
think so. But probably we will do whatever we need to do if we are asked to and paid for about electricity, because there is no other way. There is no electricity there. They depend on us. So probably they will be doing some things, but the electricity company actually announced that they will not do anything because it's governmental, but still they can do whatever they decide. They're not going to repair anything before we get back our two fallen soldiers' bodies, the remains of two fallen soldiers that were kidnapped. And
when was this?
it was a long time ago, 6 years ago.
Okay, I remember.
And they're still holding the remains of their two soldiers, and this is unacceptable. So actually the electricity company announced that they will not do anything before we get back, finally. So I don't know what will happen, but in principle, the aid, if it comes, we will make sure that it doesn't finance any more war industry. If it's tunnels, if it's the metro, the underground tunnels to Israel, tunnels underground, or rocket building, it will not finance it. We will make sure that it will not finance Hamas. And we will make sure that it comes through the Palestinian Authority in West Bank and then goes to the right places.
Interesting.
It's not easy, but we will do our efforts to make sure. Yeah.
From your own perspective as a veteran diplomat and Israel's ambassador to Rwanda, do you think with the skirmishes that have happened and everything has simmered down, everything is now a bit calm, do you think this latest ceasefire would hold?
I'm not a prophet, of course, and I can only hope, of course, that it will hold, but I don't think so. So I think that it's a matter of time until the next round. There were some reasons that for the first round. some accumulation of reasons. It was Jerusalem Day, it was Eid al-Fitr, it was the cancelling of elections, and some other reasons, but they don't really need reasons. There is no reason why to attack Israel from Gaza, no reason at all. As I said already, we have no conflict with them on anything that has to do with ground, with soil and area. We have no argument with them whatsoever about that. It is a matter of dominance of Iran, probably, and also you really cannot explain. I really try to understand, and I cannot reach any conclusion, because unless they really think they can get us out of Israel, which is not... just a minute. Which is impossible. Impossible. It's like those people from Envoy coming to Rwanda yesterday, and they think, what do they think? They can topple the regime here? What is the matter with people? So, so it will take time, hopefully longer time, because we really try to do our best to hit where it was possible without killing people. There are many instances that the pilots did not bomb anything because there were children around or civilians. They look, they cancel, they abort the mission many times. But we really try to prolong now the period, the interim between the next round.
The next round.
And what can I say? I hope that will be not so much, not soon, but later.
Interesting. To the final question.
Yes.
What, from your own perspective, and what do you think can bring about lasting peace in the region?
Please repeat.
What can bring about lasting peace in the region?
What my thinking?
Yes, you're thinking.
About peace.
What can bring about lasting peace in the Middle
As I
East?
said, I told you, first of all, the Arabs have to, the remains of the Arabs. By the way, countries like UAE and Bahrain and Morocco and others have realized that we will therefore stay, and they signed peace agreement, which is very good. Abraham Accords, it was a very good move. Some still need to, Iran is the big Satan, and Iran has to, when they, also internally, I would wish very much for Iran to change. From internal reasons, for people who go for demonstrations that are being killed because they demonstrate, it's awful. They go for elections, they are killed because they are voting the wrong person. It's terrible. It's awful regime. So I hope it will be changed soon. And if it does, and the Arabs accept us to stay in the region, the remains of those who didn't, which means the Palestinians have to move on. And that is where Arab countries are telling them already. Move on. Let's sign quickly what we can do, what we can still save from the two-state solution, and move on. But of course, we cannot take the risk of letting Hamas win there. So, I don't know. I could tell you in the past, like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I would give you some ideas how to solve the problems. I don't think I can do it now.
Because the dynamics have changed.
It's so many things have changed, and we really don't want to see Hamas taking over West Bank. We cannot see it. It's impossible. I mean, if it was like 10 or 20 years ago where international people would take part on the solution, etc., etc., but now it's impossible. You cannot really ask anyone to take care of this area. There is a need to take responsibility, accountability, move on, sign peace somehow, protecting the area of not being taken by extremists, and then I think we have a future.
Interesting.
Yes.
Thank you, Ambassador,
Yes.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.